Alrighty guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm bringing something a little bit different, and I'm going to be discussing the 5 important tips to be a control player. So give the video a like if you like it, subscribe to see future content, and without further ado then we're just going to go into the most 5 important tips for a control player or a new control player starting out. Okay, number 1, land drops. Okay, ensure that you hit your land drops. It's really important to do this because if you've got like a supreme verdict in your hand, you start your opening hand with say 2 land, for example, 3 land, and you have like an opt, and you have the ability to opt fairly early on, and you don't take that opportunity. You may miss the 4th land for a couple of turns, and not be able to like supreme verdict, for example, and then you would just get overrun by creatures. So if there's a chance for you to say cycle a card away to draw a card and hopefully hit a land drop during your main phase, I would do so, because it will hurt you later on in the game. Because if you're not able to like supreme verdict or settle the wreckage or any sort of board sweeper or anything like that, you will get run over by little dorky creatures, and you will not be able to stabilize. And that is the whole point of control. You're there to stabilize and then eventually take over the game in the mid to late game. So if you can't survive the early game and you're not hitting land drops to cast your big spells, you're more than likely going to get absolutely run over. So be very careful. You've got to try and hit your land drops. I normally keep a hand with at least 3 or 4 land, but then there's obviously times where I've just literally drawn into land and nothing else as well. So you got to be careful. You want a decent mixture of lands in your opening hands as well as spells, but yeah, you need to hit land drops. Really key here, and that is the first tip. Make sure you hit your land drops. Number 2 on the tips list is patience. Now, a lot of people will see a creature and kill it straight away. Be patient. If they've got loads of mana open, I would wait to see what they cast first before you start shooting everything down. Say you've got an ultimate price in your hand, they've played a mono black creature, for example. You don't just kill it straight away. They've got mana open, you've got a counter spell in hand. They may be trying to bait you out. They're playing something crap for you to kill and tap yourself out. So yeah, go to the end step. If they're going to cast something in their second main phase, they'll cast it in the second main phase. And yeah, if you decide that you don't want to counter it, great. But if it's a Planeswalker and it's something that you can't deal with, say you haven't got a Hero's Downfall in your hand, and you can counter it, then obviously you want to try and counter it. So be a little bit patient. Sometimes it's good to also take damage. If it's like a low amount of damage, you're on a fairly decent life total, take the damage, and then see what they do in their second main phase. Because if they're casting like an Oko or Nisa, who shakes the world, for example, which is really hard for control to deal with, if you've tapped out and you can't control that spell and you've got a counter spell in your hand, you're going to be absolutely furious with yourself. So be patient. Sometimes taking a couple of damage isn't the end of the world, but don't just start shooting stuff down and tapping yourself out, because you will set yourself up for a fall. My third tip as well is to try and have as many spells at instant speed as you can. You do not want to be tapping out during your main phase. You want to be casting stuff in his turn, and preferably at the end of their turn, where they've played a big threat and they think it's going to survive. You kill it, you untap, maybe play a big bomb like of yourself, for example, like Teferi, Hero Dominaria, or some sort of big finisher, maybe like a Ugin or something. But you do not want to be tapping out on your turn, and especially if you've got instants in hand. Like if you're going to choose removal, make sure it's instant speed rather than sorcery speed. It's a big difference between sorcery speed and instant speed, and you want to be doing stuff during their turn. So that's my third tip. Just choose instant speed stuff if you can. Obviously sometimes the big threat is at sorcery speed, but hopefully you've controlled the game enough and they've got limited amount of cards in their hand, and your big finisher is going to stick around. My fourth tip is Planeswalkers. Planeswalkers are really hard for control to deal with unless you've got like a loads of heroes downfalls in hand, or Murderous Rider or something like that. Planeswalkers are really hard to deal with. So like I said earlier, be patient with your opponent, because they will be trying to mix it up a little bit. They might be trying to go from a heavy creature strategy to a mid creature strategy and a mid Planeswalker strategy. So bringing loads of Planeswalkers from the sideboard. So they might be just baiting you out, playing these little dorky creatures and hoping that you tap out so that you can't counter their big Planeswalkers. So it's very hard for control players to have that right mix. But like I said, be patient. If it's if you're only taking one or two damage, let the creature survive, and keep up that counter spell. And if they don't cast anything else during their turn, then you can kill that creature. But just be very careful, because Planeswalkers are very hard to deal with. And my final tip, number 5, is knowing the meta. Now, knowing the meta is really important, because if you know what to expect on turn 1, like a Birds of Paradise, or if they're playing Birds of Paradise and we're playing Oko, for example, Oko's going to be coming out on turn 2 potentially, so maybe you want to kill that Birds of Paradise on your turn 1. So these are the things to consider. If you know the meta, then you know what it puts you a little bit further ahead. I've gone into standard arena sometimes and God, I'm like, what is going on here? Like, I don't even know what's going on. This is why I don't play standard, because I can't keep up with all the shenanigans that goes on. The meta changes from 1 week to the next. Whereas Modern, Pioneer, Legacy, Vintage, they have very small amount of changes. Old School practically sees no changes over its lifespan. So I like to keep it in touch with formats that very rarely change. The standard changes so much, so if you know the meta, you're one step ahead of the game. So play formats that you're familiar with, and if you know the meta, you'll be able to control the board a little bit better and control your opponent significantly better. So those are my 5 tips for you. I hope you find them helpful, and leave a comment down below. I'm sure there's a few others, but these are the 5 most important things I think moving forward. And hope you find this useful, and I'll see you in future videos, guys. Thanks for all your support, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.